over to, there we go. We'll hand over to Alan.
Morning, everybody. Sorry, it's just moving these around. Lovely to see you all first thing bright and breezy on a Monday morning. Really appreciate you attending, and welcome to our first of 6 district meetings across our region. My name is Alan Kealy. I'm Director of Potentia Teaching School Hub, your new hub that's operating across Derbyshire, but also specifically within your region. My colleagues who are on the call, you've got Lucy Wood, Tracy Dundas and Katie Cresswell. They will jump in at different points throughout the course this morning, but really at any point, if you want to ask any questions, please do feel free to do so. We are here to support you. This is quite a big thing to go through today, but again, we will try and go through as succinctly as we can, but also outline the new initiative of hubs and strategically how we will be operating within Derbyshire. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, so very, very briefly, you'll be aware of this on the landscape. Teaching school hubs are replacing teaching school alliances. Prior to this, you may have been involved with one of the 750 plus teaching school alliances within your region, within your locality, and the DfE have decided to reduce that number down to 87 teaching school hubs, which have been deemed as centres of excellence for teacher training development. Now, teaching school hubs are the vehicle in which the DfE are trying to ensure we have a world-class educational system across the country and within our area, and the hubs are one of the mechanisms that's going to hopefully assist in that, and in particularly around professional development. Hubs will be in operation from September 2021. As you can appreciate, we are kind of in operation at the moment. We were designated not that long ago, around March time, and we've tried to make sure that we've got everything up and running in the very, very short time span in preparation for September 2021. So as much as that's saying it is going to be the new academic year, we are already doing so, and this morning is one of those first instances. Hopefully you get to engage with us in that capacity. So our hubs and all hubs in general will play a significant role in delivering the Early Career Framework, ECF, which is going to be available nationally from 2021. The new suite of NPQs, which are obviously the new changed or newly amended NPQs from the prior models that have been existing for about 10 years. School-based ITT, so that will hopefully, in the mechanisms that you know, School Direct, apprenticeships, primary, secondary, all those mechanisms that you're already aware of, probably through your teaching school alliances or lead schools for ITT, and appropriate body services for early career teachers. Just to make you aware of this quite early on, Tracy will allude to this later, who's our lead for ECF and appropriate body. We will be partnering up with the Derbyshire Local Authority. They will lead on appropriate body services, whereas Potentia will be doing the early career teacher offer of ECF, which Tracy will talk in more detail later. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, so again, to summarize the reason why teaching school hubs, you will know that the recruitment and retention strategy came out quite a while ago now, and it identified that we were losing too many colleagues from our profession at many levels. So really, as part of that mechanism to make sure that we're making our staff, our leaders, our schools better place to keep colleagues within schools, but to be higher performing, the DfE have decided to introduce elements such as the core content framework and evidence-based research at all phases of a staff member's career and their journey within their schools. So from trainee teacher element, from ITT, all the way to your 2 years as a teacher from September, and then into the new suite of NPQs, there is that real rich evidence base underneath all of that that will hopefully allow us to keep our colleagues within the profession, have them aware of the academic rigor within their roles, but also the pedagogical approaches or mechanisms to be able to be successful within schools and stay in schools. And the golden thread which is underneath it is the teaching school hubs, and hopefully we will be able to enable that across our region. And within our region, we've got a very exciting opportunity to do that with 318 schools. The reason this was chosen in particular professional development, you will know this from being a school leader. the most determinant factor, I guess, in terms of pupil outcomes is just the quality of teaching, and that is the most important factor for that. And the government really are pushing that agenda. So the PD development, professional development, is going to be hopefully enabling that to take place. Thanks, Lucy. So our hub will be operating in 6 regions across our Derbyshire patch. We are not completely covering all of Derbyshire. South Derbyshire is covered by the Spencer hub, with Tammy Elwood in the south and the city as well, but we will be covering these 6 districts. In terms of today, and as we develop as 6 districts, you can appreciate there's a lot of schools, and we want to make sure that this is not a done-to offer, but it's an integral offer that goes both ways, where we support you, and we will do that in many mechanisms over the next couple of years. But initially, the first step is to get us together as districts, and why we're here this morning is Amber Valley. Hopefully, you'll see the other ones as well, and there'll be links at certain elements, but we've got 6 districts across our region to support. Thanks, Lucy. So you've known about teaching school hubs from being aware of the landscape change, just on a very brief introduction about it. But who are we? It's all well and good me telling you about hubs, but who is Potentia? So Potentia is one of 5 local authority maintained teaching school hubs. The remainder are multi-academy trusts nationally. And why I think we were chosen is we bring a very, very varied amount of experience, but also the capacity and scalability to operate across a very, very large region of 318 schools, which, from one end to the other is quite a range in terms of locality and individual challenges as well. We were in competition with quite a few other potential teaching school hub applications for this region. I'm glad to say that we were successful, and just so you know who we are built originally on the premise of the Derbyshire Teaching Schools Together, and the Derbyshire Teaching Schools Together covers all sectors and phases, giving us that real rich understanding of those sectors and phases across our region. And we've also bolstered that with large multi-academy trusts who have greater experience in some elements such as NPQs or scalability. So we've combined with Learners Trust and Learners First Partnership towards the north of the county, and we've also got Flying High Partnership towards the south. Now, the reason for that is we want to make sure that irrespective of where you are within Derbyshire, travel time can be a big issue, locality can be an issue. So we want to ensure that we can have a north and southish offer to make sure that you can access it wherever you are, and that you've got that rich diet of support on professional development issues as they develop. Also, we'll do that within your region, but where that not be the case, it will be on a north and south basis to make sure that you can travel and access it. Thanks, Lucy. Last one from me is just a very, very brief summary of our deliverables. The 3 that is in front of you: ITT, CPD and NPQs. ITT, we as a hub will still signpost all of our schools within the region if you require any school direct input for all sectors and phases, also in a full-time or part-time capacity, to be mindful that the market has suggested to us that we should be offering a part-time route, and that is already in operation for secondary. However, this year we will be looking at it for primary as well. Teaching apprenticeships is a new initiative, and some schools have been on this journey for about 2 years, some just recently this year, next year. Teaching apprenticeships are a very good way for you to train your own. If you've got a member staff in your school who's currently as an unqualified teacher and has quite a lot of experience and degree, it's a very, very good mechanism to get them on board, and you can then apply them for a year, and hopefully you don't lose any capacity in terms of them moving out and doing a lighter workload. And just to give you an indication on that, if you're an apprentice, you teach at 80%, so it's pretty much the same as what they would be doing. And then we've also got a secondary skit model, which Lucy, who was on the start of the call, is leading on for us. So very, very varied, and that will develop over the next coming year and year after that. CPD, we have key elements that we need to make sure that we signpost our schools to, and they are on 3 levels, not hierarchical, just levels to be aware of. Number one is the DFE approved programs, which you're all aware of. Thanks, Lucy, for that in the chat, and Katie. DFE approved programs such as governor training, the NPQs as they were. You'll have seen that on the DFE database. Level 2 is existing evidence-based CPD. Going back to what I said at the very, very start, that thread of evidence and research-based professional development, hopefully aligning you as schools to your hubs for whatever mechanism you need, but also helping to address the priorities within your schools and either signposting you to hubs, or point 3, level 3 is where if those hubs and other DFE approved programs aren't maybe necessarily meeting that need, us as a hub commissioning work to address those, and that may be done as part of our remit as the teaching school hub with DFE targeted funds, or it may be through generation of our own funds to work on areas that we feel that the market within Derbyshire needs. And just to rest assured for everybody on the call, the CPD activity now as it moves forward, there's 5 standards for CPD that we must adhere to, and they're rigorous and robust. So when we go into that in a bit more detail over the next year or two, you'll be able to see that, but you can rest assured that it's underpinned by evidence and it's for longevity rather than for the short term. And then finally, the NPQs. I'm just going to touch on this very, very briefly because we will be having follow-on sessions next half term and summer too, going through NPQs in far more detail. We would have a cohort starting in September, but due to the delay with the DFE and also the timeline as well for us as hubs nationally, the first cohort will be starting in November. So that gives us time to think about it and get it to you when you need it in terms of information. Very, very conscious that you are seriously burdened with a lot of information at the moment. So we're going to time phase that to make sure that you can get it when you need it, but also not overburden you with too much information. The biggest change with the NPQs is that they are split into 2 elements now. You've got the specialist NPQs, and they are leading teaching, leading teacher development, and leading behaviour and culture. So they're specialist, very, very new, and again, some exciting opportunities for us as a region and schools on that one. And then you've got your leadership ones, which are the same really, aside from the fact that we're missing out on the ML one, which was in the prior NPQ structure. So you've got NPQ SL, NPQ H, and NPQ EL. The biggest premise I would say to you about the NPQs is that they are in-post focused rather than prior where it was aspirational. They are now focused on in-post. So if you are doing those roles, it would be expected that that was when you would access the NPQs initially. That may change over time with that, but then that allows you to really focus on the structure of the NPQs where it is shorter, more quicker based input rather than the NPQs as they are now, where it was over a long period of time. You'd access maybe 3-4 sessions a year, have a lot of gaps in between your sessions, where it's short, sharp now. You're looking at evidence-based, you're applying it, and then you are then revisiting it later on. It's been shown to be proven, which I'll go in more detail, as the biggest indicator for change, short-term reading with short-term impact. Lucy, thank you. And then that just goes through some of the content if you want to look at it in terms of the 6 models. Okay, so from me, I think that's everything we need to know so far about the hub and where we've come from, why we're here, and hopefully how we're going to support you within your region, Amber Valley, but also across our 318 schools. Before we just go on to the next bit with the website, Lucy, it's okay, you can go back to that slide. Is there any questions that anybody wants to ask me at this point? Just scan the chat. Okay, thanks, Katie, for popping that in the chat about primary school direct programs. Okay. So just before Lucy talks a little bit about the navigation of the website, we want to make sure that your experience as a user, but also as a school, is streamlined as possible, but also relevant to the sectors and phases that we've got. within our vast region. So when you eventually get to log on to our website, you'll be able to navigate through this. And the whole idea is that it's clickable and you can access everything you need in 1 or 2 elements, but it's also tailored to your phase and your sector. Lucy, would you want me to pass over to you?
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. I'm just going to click onto that one. So the new website, which will hopefully be up and running within a few weeks, is that website up at the top. We, like Alan said, we wanted to make it really clear where you can find your information. So essentially the 3 bits that are quite key to you are here: your sector pages, so early years, primary, secondary, special and SEN, down at the bottom. And what you would do, you know, if you're primary, you would just click on your primary button and all the information that you need is in there. Just as an extra, up at the top, if you want to navigate via a menu, as you will see on kind of many older websites, everything will be in there also. So you can navigate 2 different ways. But the easiest way for us, we feel, is this bottom way at the bottom. You can also search here. So just using the search function, you can type in a keyword and that will navigate you to the right sector. So when you click on your early years or primary, whichever sector you're in, you will then find this page. So you will be taken to your own website. So there will be an early years website, a primary website, secondary website, special website. Within that, you can find the information regarding those deliverable areas. So the early career framework, everything you will need to know about early career framework for your area will be within that button, similar with the NPQs and CPD and ITT. And again, on that website will be the menu and the search functionality, just the same as on the main website. So you can access the higher main page to find out any new information, and then head to your own sector for that. Okay.
Thanks, Lucy. And hopefully we're just going to make it as streamlined as possible for you. That is a website in development, so please bear with us. It will look a lot more finished than that when we have it done. On the homepage, we'll have a lot more information about how to navigate and other upcoming things. But as a premise, we want to make sure that you can access it and you're not filtering through a lot of noise. You can just get it quickly, because as school leaders, we all know how much we need to access information quickly, but also more importantly, we also need to know that the content we're accessing where possible is as bespoke to our schools as possible. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, so I've talked far too much and I'm now going to put something back onto you. We just have a very quick CPD engagement survey. Lucy is going to kindly pop this into the chat. The survey should take you 2 or 3 minutes to complete. It's just a chance for us to see really the priorities for you as a school, what maybe prior engagement you've had with CPD and who was it with, but also what have been the barriers in your locality or school. So if you would really, I'd really appreciate if you could do that for us. That can be done now in the next 2-3 minutes if you wish. And we can take a pause, I think probably of maybe about 2 minutes, and then we can come back to it. Or if you feel like you want to just decompress and take on board what we said so far, take those 2 minutes to do that, and you can do it before we get to the end. But we'd really appreciate if we could have this completed by everybody at the end. And Lucy will sadly be popping in later on just to make sure that we're at 100% completion rate. So we'll have a couple of minutes and then we'll just continue on to next part with Tracy. Thanks for the reminder, Lucy. Okay, everybody, I'm just going to pass you on to Tracy Dundas. She's our lead for ECF and she will talk you through the next steps related to ECF.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm just going to talk briefly about the early career framework and what it is that schools need to be thinking about at this stage, and the things that you can be doing if you're going to be having an early career teacher joining you in September. Now, I do appreciate that there's quite a lot of information out there now, so I'm going to apologise in advance if you've already seen some of this. I think what we're trying to do really is just to make sure that all schools are fully aware of the options and the requirements so that they can make the right choices going forward. So I think you're probably already aware that the Early Career Framework, as Alan has mentioned, has been introduced from September 2021. And this is going to provide a funded entitlement for the first 2 years of a teacher's career. It's born out of the teacher recruitment and retention strategy, where it was found that there were too many teachers leaving the profession within the first few years. And one of the key things that was felt that would keep them in that profession was a structured programme in the first 2 years. So can we go to the next slide, Lucy, please? And what we're looking at here then is actually what is changing. So this slide shows you the difference between the current arrangements and what will be happening from September 21. So as already mentioned, the length of support that they will have will now move to 2 years rather than 1 year. And the induction process will also be for 2 years. Now, as Alan's already mentioned, we're offering the Early Career Framework, which is the support and the CPD side, the training side, whereas we're working at least initially with the local authority, who will be operating as appropriate body, as they have done historically as well. But that appropriate body induction will also take 2 years. So the expectation currently that NQTs, and I think it's important to point out that the actual names are changing. So there won't be NQTs moving forward. There will be ECTs, or early career teachers, and that's how we'll refer to them going forward. So currently our NQTs have a 10% reduced timetable in the first year, and that will continue from September 2021. But also in their second year, when we would normally call them RQTs, they'll still be early career teachers in year 2, and there will need to be a 5% reduced timetable in that second year. The current content, and I appreciate that most schools have got some sort of programme for their NQTs currently, but there isn't any defined national content for that. It's usually up to the school to decide what they consider needs to be included in that. But going forward from September, there will be defined content which is within the Early Career Framework. If you've not already seen it, you can access that raw document on the DFE website. It is there for you to look at. So that's changing. So the idea there really was to get some consistency in schools, because as we know, most schools have got some programme, and often that's a really good programme, but I think that's variable across the country. So the role of the mentor, there is currently, and again, a sort of an expectation, and most schools will have a mentor for their NQTs. What we're looking at going forward is that this role of the mentor is separate from that of an induction tutor. Now, normally or often, particularly in small schools, they can be the same person, but there are actually 2 defined roles in this. So the mentor is the person who will work on a weekly basis with the early career teacher, and they will offer the support and the training that's taken from the Early Career Framework. Whereas the induction tutor is more likely to be a senior member of staff and somebody who organises the programme across the school and also takes care of the assessment side of things. So they are 2 separate roles. I think that there is a hope, and I say that rather than expectation, there is a hope that these will be 2 different people. However, we appreciate that in smaller schools that might not always be the case. If your mentor and your induction tutor are likely to be the same person, then it is very clear that you understand the different roles and that they are kept separate. I think the idea here is that the ECT is felt that when they're working with their mentor, that it is purely supportive, and that the assessment side of it is separate from that. Now, I know in the real world that's going to blur a little bit, but that's the idea of having these 2 separate roles. Now, the assessment side of it, as we mentioned, that the appropriate body will do. There is no assessment on the Early Career Framework training. The assessment comes from the appropriate body, and it's currently, as you know, marked against teacher standards. This will continue, but instead of the 3 formal assessment points that take place currently, there will be 2 formal assessments, and there'll be regular progress reviews in between that. I think for more information, then you can contact the local authority for that information. We can certainly help you or signpost you if you need it, but as they will be running it, they will send you, and I believe they already have anyway, sent out information to support you with that. Now, I did mention that this is funded. So currently the funding for your NQTs is already included in your core school budget. This funding bit is a little bit contentious because I think it isn't actually separate in your school budget currently, so it's difficult to actually find where it is, but the DFE have assured us that it's already in there. So there will be funding in the new programme in the second year, so there won't be additional funding in the first year because, as I mentioned, it's already included in there, but there will be funding, and I'll talk a little bit more about how much that is in a later slide. There will be funding for the second year. And for what that's the timetable for your early career teacher and for the mentor to do their work. Early career teachers currently in NQT can go up the pay scale after the first year if appropriate, and that will continue. So even though the induction is over 2 years, an early career teacher can still progress if appropriate up the pay scale after the first year, sorry. And then we mentioned the role of the appropriate body. So in a moment, I'm going to show you the options that a school have got to deliver this early career framework. The appropriate body will be involved in checking that the teachers receive the statutory entitlement. So going forward, it's making sure that they are actually following an early career framework programme, or a programme that is based on the early career framework. And there are 3 options that a school will have in choosing what they do. And the role of appropriate body will be different depending on which option you choose. And I'll mention a bit more of that in a moment. We'll go to the next slide, please, Lucy. Thank you. So I mentioned then there's 3 options that a school have got to take. So I'll just go through these as it is on the screen there. So the first option is to work with a provider. So we as Potentia will be working as a provider, and we will be offering a full programme that covers everything that's needed to satisfy the requirements of the early career framework. So if you choose to come with us or another provider, then what you will get, or what you will need to do, is you will get funding for time or timetable I've already mentioned in the second year. You will get access to a 2-year programme based on early career framework. Now that will be made up on face-to-face sessions of training as well as online training as well. And we can send you a brochure with the delivery of the lead provider that we're working with around that. We're working with Education Development Trust. So it's a blended approach to the training. There is also involved in that self-directed study material. So the early career teacher will be able to access information from a portal that we'll be using. And there's materials to support the mentor sessions. So during each of those weekly sessions, during the 10% off timetable that we talked about before, there will be study materials that the mentor will be able to use with the early career teacher. So the minimal work as far as preparing for those sessions goes. So the training, as mentioned, is funded. The money for that won't come to schools, so there is no extra burden on schools. It's paid directly to the provider based on the early career teachers that join them. So that's really, as I mentioned, just to try and prevent extra burden on the schools. So there is also training delivered to the mentor. So training for the early career teacher and training for the mentor, and that will be delivered by us using local facilitators. And if you choose this programme, the full programme, this one, we're calling this a full induction programme. If you choose this one, then there is additional funding to also cover backfill for the mentor, so that mentor can go to training or attend training. So with this, then you will get funding, just to summarise, you'll get funding for training, or there will be funding available for the early career teacher, there's funding available for the time off timetable, and the school will directly get funding to backfill the mentor time that is spent on their training. The option 2, which is called the core induction programme, if you go onto the DFE Early Career Framework website, you may already have had a look, but there are 4 sets of materials that are on there. So you can take those materials, one of the 4 sets, and you can deliver it yourself in school. So you don't have to go with a full induction programme. You can actually deliver this yourself by using those materials that are on there. And you will get funding for time off timetable, but you won't get the extra funding for delivering training to the mentors if you choose that route. And if you go, you could also go for the third one, which is design your own or a DIY programme. And from this, you can take the early career framework in its raw form, and you can create your own program from that. When I mentioned before that the appropriate body will have different input into different routes, if you choose the full induction program, then the appropriate body is happy that that has been QA'd at the lead provider level. So as far as the school's concerned, there isn't anything else involved with the QA side of that. So the appropriate body will see that you're using a full induction program, and basically it's just a tick to say that that's okay, because we will be QA'd by a different route. If you choose the second, excuse me, or the third route, so the core induction or the DIY model, then the appropriate body will need to make sure that you are actually fulfilling the requirements of the framework. So there will be fidelity checks that they will need to do. Now, for more information of this, it's probably better to contact your appropriate body, whoever choose to use, but it's likely to be in the form of some sort of an audit to have a look at, just to make sure that you're actually fulfilling the requirements. And that might be an audit or a check throughout the 2 years to ensure that it's still happening. As far as appropriate body costs go, again, you'll know, I'm not sure what the local authority charge currently. I think it's around about £80 a term, something like that. There's likely to be different charges involved. If you went with the full induction program, that's going to cost you the least, obviously, because there aren't the fidelity checks needed. But for the second two options, there is likely to be a higher charge for appropriate body services because they will need to do more work in ensuring you've got that program right. So appreciate that it's a lot to think about around that. And obviously, I think the thinking at the DFE level is that most schools, at least initially, will probably go for the full induction program because it's basically all done for you and you get extra funding. If you went for the other two programs, you would need to make sure that it is of the same quality and content as that full induction program, but it is something that schools can do. Okay, let's go next slide, please, Lucy. So I mentioned funding here, and this is the funding that you as a school will receive. So if we look into that first table that's down there, for your early career teacher, you'll get £1,200. And you will get this at the end of the second year. Again, I mentioned that the DFE say that the funding for the first year is already in your budget. So that 1,200 is for the second year. And you will get this towards the end of the second year, and it will be based on your workforce census. So they will pick up that you've got early career teachers through that mechanism. You will also, in the second year, get £900 for your mentor, the timetable for the mentor as well. Now, I mentioned if you went with the full induction programme, there is additional funding that will come to the school, and this is to pay for the training, as I mentioned, the training for the mentor that they will undergo with the provider. Now, we're not sure exactly how much this is at the moment. It is something that's still being confirmed by DFE. I've seen various figures bandied about, but I don't want to actually say in case I get it wrong, but there will be extra funding for 36 hours of backfill for that mentor, which you won't get if you go down the core, the second route or the third route. Okay, thanks, Lucy. So just because it's, I think there's been a little bit of confusion, certainly when these programs were first being set up around lead providers, delivery partners, who you need to choose from. So this is just for the full induction program that we're offering, and nationally there are 6 lead providers. So you may well have seen some of this in any literature that might have been sent to you. So those 6 providers are the ones that have got the contract with the DFE to provide the materials and to run the programs, and they will be working with delivery partners like us at Potentia, and the delivery partners will deliver it on the ground. So we will be working, as I mentioned earlier, with the Education Development Trust. If you wanted to come with us on that full programme, then you would need to register your early careers teachers with the Education Development Trust that is on there. Lucy, would you be able just to put that link in the chat, please, in case anybody wants to go with that? We will have this on the final slide as well. So you would need to register with the Education Development Trust, who will then tell us at Potentia which schools have registered. So that would be one of the first things for you to do. Also on there, there is more information about the programme, and so we can send you a brochure. We do have it on our website, but I think, as Alan mentioned, at the moment we're not fully up and running and with that. So I know there's one or two technical glitches at the moment, so it's probably better initially to get information from there or to contact us and we can email things through to you. Okay, thanks, Lucy. So you should also have had an email or a letter from the DFE about their online service portal. This is somewhere else where you need to register if you've got early career teachers. So basically there are two places where you will need to put in your information. Education Development Trust if you're choosing to work with us. But in any case, if you have an early career teacher and you're going with the full induction programme or the core programme, so that is the one with us or the ones where you use the materials of the DFE site, you will need to register on this service. Hopefully you've got this information already, so this isn't anything new to you. So when you go onto this service, you will need to nominate your school induction tutor, you'll select your school's delivery route. You will only need to select from the full programme or the core programme. If you're choosing to do it yourself, that is write your own programme from the framework, the third option there, then you don't need to use this service at all. Your appropriate body will check that you're doing what's needed. So you will also put in their details of your early career teachers, and you'll also put in details of your induction tutor. Now this is something that you can do right up until induction starting. So I appreciate that not all schools are going to have all their early career teachers in place yet. So this is something that will be open until induction starts in September, October time on that. So they're the things that you need to do up at the top there as far as registering. What you need to do outside of that online service then is obviously to think about which of the three routes you want to go with. And if you choose to go with the full induction programme, we hope that you'll choose to come with us, but you are of course at liberty to go with any provider that's operating in the area. So you'll need to have a look at what's going on. You will also need to think about who you want to be your appropriate body. And if you're going down the core route or the DIY route, contact them to find out what the requirements are as far as their fidelity checks go. And then work with appropriate facility induction. We said that, so you can find out what you need to do. As I mentioned, if you're choosing the DIY route or you don't have any early career teachers next year, then you don't need to do anything in this instance. You don't need to register. Okay, so only register on this if you're going with the full programme or the core and when you've actually got your early career teachers in place. Thanks, Lucy. So this is just to summarise then the actions of things to do now. So choosing the full programme, the first one there, sign up. It says with the Teaching School Hub, but I'm asking you to sign up with the Education Development Trust if you want to come with us. Sign up on your DFE site and then ensure that you've got your timetable reductions in place for your early career teacher. If you're choosing the core route, then you'll need to go onto the DFE website, have a look at the published materials that are on there, choose which one of those suits your needs. Then you will need to register on the DFE portal, as I mentioned, and contact the appropriate body to find out what you need to do to satisfy their requirements. And if you're going for the third option where you do it yourself, then download the framework, have a look at it, design your programme. You need to make sure that you're covering everything that's in there. And then obviously, as we mentioned before, ensure your timetable reductions in place and speak with the appropriate body to find out what you need to do for those. Okay, thanks, Lucy. And that's it from me. I appreciate that there's quite a lot there. And if you've not managed to get your head around it just yet, please feel free to get in touch. My contact details will be at the end. Any questions that you might have on this as you start to think through what it might mean for you, please get in touch with us. Or there'll be a little time at the end, I think, or just pop it in the chat now. Thank you. I'll pass back to Alan. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Tracy, and thank you everybody for listening to it. We felt that obviously with it being started from September, hugely important that you have that as soon as you can and you can make that informed decision. But Tracy rightly said, we are here to support you. Tracy's here to support you with this. So if you have any questions from today, thank you for popping the email into chat. Brilliant, thanks, Lucy. Please contact her directly. She will get back to you. And Tracy, just one quick question for me. If you didn't have an ECT next year, what would you do?
You don't need to do anything if you don't have an ECT. So you don't need to register if you don't have one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just being selfish for my school. Okay, next slide. Okay, everybody, before we move on to the final bit of smaller sessions, again, thank you so much for being with us so early on a Monday morning. Hopefully we've not taken too much of your time up and made you even more tired after a very, very long half term. Can you just, if you have a moment to complete the survey, that would be great. But other than that, is there any questions you would like to ask anybody from the team? Okay, so that's the tumbleweed effect. I'm sorry if I've been really boring for you first thing this morning. Next slide, please, Lucy. So if you want to get in touch with us, these are the contact details. I've seen you scribbling away quite fiercely, some of you. So we will share these with you, so you can have those bits as well. They have been populated in the chat, but if you do need to get in touch with us, please, please, please do reach out to those details above. Alan Kealy, would you like to introduce yourself so you can be the face to the person they might need to speak to first?
Yeah, hi. I think I've come across some of you before, but I'm Katie Cresswell, so I'm sort of the background in terms of helping share information. So I'll be the person that will pick up on emails. So it's just nice to welcome you all to Potentia. It's very exciting times for us, and I'm actually based at Alfreton Nursery School. So anything to do with early years, that's my bag. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Katie. So other than that, thank you everybody so much for being here this morning. Have a lovely last couple of days. Get through this half term and have a well-deserved break next week. We all need it. So thank you so much again.